The studio lights cast a clinical glow over the set of The View, but beneath that surface glow, an electric tension crackled in the air. Ana Navarro sat rigid at her usual spot, her posture sharp, her gaze fixed on an unseen point just beyond the camera's edge. Her face betrayed nothing, yet every line in her jaw and the faint crease between her brows spoke of a simmering storm. Across from her, Rosie O'Donnell entered the frame. Her movements deliberate, a silent acknowledgement that today's show would not follow its usual rhythm. The production team paused, mid-adjustment on their equipment, as if sensing the shift in energy. Makeup artists stepped back. Floor managers exchanged cautious glances. The other co-hosts effected smiles, but their eyes flicked repeatedly to Rosie and Ana, already primed for something volatile. Neither woman spoke. The silence in their shared space said more than any promotional highlight ever could. Rosie's entrance had been light, though unnoticed by many. It carried weight. She didn't greet anyone. She didn't glance at Ana. Instead, she fixed her notes, squared her shoulders, exhaling as if steeling herself. Ana didn't move. She merely felt the presence, the tension coiling tighter at the edges of the studio. The set that had once been her stage felt smaller. Whispers had circulated earlier that week, talk show rumors of a confrontation. Rosie, known for her transparency and willingness to challenge establishment norms, had hinted off camera about certain hosts softening controversial viewpoints for political gain. Ana, a fierce conservative voice and former political advisor, had replied with measured criticisms. Neither name was dropped, but the implication was clear. Now both sat mere feet apart, their tension palpable. The cameras remained off, yet the lights in anticipation felt louder than any microphone. Rosie's fist curled around her coffee cup, unknowing muscles flexing. Ana flexed her fingers around her pen, the pressure apparent even to those with averted eyes. The crew held their breaths. No one dared to speak first. A single floor manager pressed a button, initiating a silent signal for the show to begin. But even that movement felt tentative. Rosie met Ana's gaze for a heartbeat. The look was sharp and unwavering, a flash of history, of conflicting loyalty spheres, and unbroken. Ana didn't look away. In her calm, resolute stare, one could sense both respect and readiness for the storm. The rest of the team watched, transfixed. The make-believe of daytime TV had dissolved. This was no segment, no topic teaser. It was a power shift, a reckoning, a moment, raw, unpredictable, alive with ideological and personal weight. And, still, no words were spoken. Yet the silence in that moment screamed louder than a live debate ever could. The walls of the studio felt like they were slowly caving inward. Not physically, but emotionally, each inch saturated with the heaviness of unspoken resentments. The floor beneath the women, polished to a glossy sheen, no longer reflected just their images, but mirrored the sharp divide between them. The stage that once unified opinions and laughter now stood as the battlefield of contrasting beliefs and egos, finely edged by years of accumulated friction. Ana leaned slightly forward, not to speak, but to command the space around her with more force. It was a subtle but intentional movement. Her hands were still, but her presence expanded. Rosie remained upright, but leaned subtly back, her expression unreadable, her body tense, yet composed. The stillness between them was deceptive. It wasn't calm, but compressed fury in elegant packaging. The other co-hosts, typically vocal, had become passive silhouettes in the background. No one wanted to make eye contact. No one wanted to be seen choosing a side, even accidentally. What had started as a routine pre-show minute had crystallized into a psychological standoff that blurred the lines between on-screen performance and real-world animosity. The control room, separated by panes of glass, fell silent. Producers held back from barking commands. Fingers hovered over switches. Not even the countdown began. Because there was something more real happening here than any talking point segment. This wasn't about celebrity gossip, or politics, or scripted monologues. This was about dominance. About legacy. About two women at the height of their media personas refusing to blink. Even the artificial plants in the background seemed to lean away from the epicenter of energy between them. Rosie's breath remained slow and measured, but her eyes flickered in nervousness, but calculation. Ina's jaw was clenched, her expression a mask of decorum stretched over raw irritation. Both knew how cameras worked. Both knew the power of timing, of stillness. And yet, the fight wasn't in words. It was in silence, sharpened into a weapon. Someone in the crew cleared their throat, instantly regretting the sound. It was swallowed by the atmosphere, and ignored by everyone. Across the table, a pen rolled slightly, the faint tap as it hit Anna's index finger, like a gavel on invisible judgment. Still, neither woman flinched. Their posture alone wrote the narrative. Rosie, fingers curled around her script, but she didn't look at it. Her mind wasn't on paper. Her thoughts raced in real time, measuring every twitch of Ana's eyebrow, every microshift in expression. She had been here before, in moments of live conflict. But this was different. This was inside the tribe, a clash among equals, among hosts, among rivals. Ana's lips parted, just barely no breath escaped. No words followed, but the motion alone set off a vibration in the air. An almost imperceptible invitation. Or warning. Rosie caught it. Her shoulders squared a degree more. Her eyes narrowed, not in anger, but acknowledgement. The cameras remained off. But the moment was far more cinematic than any live taping. Studio heat mingled with adrenaline. Every observer stood like a shadow against the wall of history being silently written. No directors called for action. No one dared. And still, not a word was spoken. The rivalry wasn't new. The political jabs on past episodes, the passive-aggressive interruptions, the subtle undermining disguised as humor, they had all led here. But this wasn't about policy anymore. It was about respect, about presence, about two gravitational forces occupying one studio and refusing to yield. A clock ticked somewhere, loud in the hush. A bead of sweat rolled down the temple of a stagehand behind the camera. But for Rosie and Ana, time was suspended. They were frozen, not by fear, but by willpower. Neither would make the first move. That would be too much like concession. Someone behind the scenes whispered something into a headset. A producer nodded, but nothing changed. The universe of The View had compressed into this moment. No script, no set change, no laughter track, only weight, silence, and the intensity of two women born for conflict. The artificial glow of the overhead studio lights now seemed to press downward. Not illuminating, but exposing every twitch of a muscle, every shallow breath. The silence was so complete it became a sound of its own, a humming pressure that filled the space between Rosie and Ana, like a third presence. Neither woman moved, yet the force between them shifted subtly, as if two tectonic plates had aligned, at last not to coexist, but to threaten rupture. Rosie's eyes dropped not in surrender, but strategy, glancing for a half-second at the edge of the table, then lifting again with a gaze colder, more focused. It was the look of someone not retreating, but reloading. Ana responded not with expression, but posture, straightening her spine as if a steel rod had just been slid through it. Her poise was nearly regal now, carefully constructed, wordless authority draped across her shoulders like armor. No one in the room breathed normally. The silence wasn't just uncomfortable, it was anticipatory. Not because something was about to happen, but because something already was. This moment didn't need movement or speech. It was already a confrontation. It was already a story. The set decor behind them, a muted blend of pastels and faux comfort, felt like a laughable contrast to the emotional battlefield occurring front and center. Cushioned chairs and coffee mugs sat like props in a stage play that had gone off script and off rails. The glossy logo of The View, projected on a wall nearby, pulsed with soft color cycles, oblivious to the drama rooted beneath it. One of the floor producers took a silent step toward the director's booth, as if motion itself might break the invisible contract holding this moment intact. Another co-host shifted in her seat, eyes darting from Rosie to Ana, and back again. But neither of the two central figures acknowledged anyone else's presence. They were locked inside their own force field, forged by years of ideological combat, and veiled comments that had accumulated like sediment in the space between them. Rosie's hand twitched near her notepad. She didn't reach for it, she only hovered, fingers close but still. Ana's gaze dropped to the motion, her pupils narrowing slightly, as if calculating intent. Still no speech, still no gesture. But the body language spoke volumes. This was not avoidance. This was a war declared without weapons. Rosie's presence felt volcanic, contained, but volatile, boiling just under the surface. Her shoulders relaxed incrementally, but her eyes hardened. It was the look of a woman not waiting to be provoked, but daring to be. Across from her, Ana resembled an iron statue, controlled, unyielding, a figure of composure sharpened into intimidation. Her strength wasn't in outward hostility, but in the unshakable conviction she wore like a second skin.